Picture this. It is midnight in the absolute dead of July.
Oh, yeah, the worst time for it.
Right. And you know the exact kind of summer night I'm talking about, where the heat just sort of like sits heavily on your roof.
And the humidity is just unbearable.
Exactly. The humidity makes the air feel thick enough to cut with a knife. So you are lying in bed, sweating, and you suddenly realize that something is very, very wrong.
The dreaded realization.
Yeah, because you can hear your air conditioner running, like it's humming along, making all the usual comforting noises.
Sounds completely normal.
Right, sounds totally fine. You even hold your hand up to the ceiling vent and you can actually feel air blowing out. But your house just will not cool down.
Not even a little bit.
No. In fact, that air blowing on your hand feels suspiciously warm. And you've probably been there, right? Typing frantically into your phone in the dark, trying to figure out why your personal sanctuary is suddenly turning into a sauna.
It is the absolute classic summer nightmare. I mean, it's the #1 scenario that causes just sheer panic.
I believe it.
Because homeowners instantly assume that the entire mechanical system has catastrophically failed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they are just doomed to suffer in the heat.
Exactly. We always jump straight to the worst case scenario, like the whole thing is ruined. But the mission of our deep dive today is to stop that panic right in its tracks.
Absolutely.
We are going to walk down what we're calling the troubleshooting ladder of your AC system. We're going from the absolute easiest 1-minute fix at the very top of the ladder all the way down to the bottom rung where you genuinely do need a professional.
It's a very logical process.
It really is. And by the end of this, you will have a clear game plan and you will never have to panic in the heat again.
That's the goal.
And to guide us down this ladder, we have the perfect voice of authority. Joining us today is a master HVAC technician who is NATE certified.
Which is an important distinction.
It is, yeah. To the listener, NATE certification is basically the absolute gold standard for technical excellence in the industry. And our guest today boasts 47 years in the trade and is the owner of Hartzell's Heat and Air in Kingfisher, Oklahoma.
I am very glad to be here. Because there is actually, well, a lot of incredibly good news when it comes to this specific problem.
Really? Good news.
Oh, yeah. That warm air coming out of your vent, it is a symptom. It's not a diagnosis.
Ah, I like that. A symptom, not a diagnosis.
Right. There is a highly logical progression of physical reasons why this happens. And as you said, we can just methodically work through them.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are standing in a sweltering house. The vent is blowing warm air right in our faces, and we are looking at the very top rung of this troubleshooting ladder. Where do we begin?
Well, you might laugh, but the very first place you start playing detective is the thermostat itself.
The thermostat. Really?
I have personally driven a long, long way out to a home in the middle of a brutal heat wave just to fix this exact issue. Yeah, there are 2 specific settings you need to verify immediately. First, look closely and make sure the system is actually set to cool and not just bumped over to fan.
Wait, it's actually that easy to mix up?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, someone wipes down the wall or a kid bumps it and suddenly the cooling is completely disengaged.
That makes sense.
But the second setting is where people really get tricked by their own good intentions. You need to look at the fan setting and understand the critical difference between auto and on. You want that fan set to auto.
Okay, I will admit I have been totally guilty of this exact thing.
Oh, it's very common.
I always assumed that leaving the fan switched to on would just constantly circulate the leftover cool air around the rooms, you know? Almost like a giant ceiling fan. You're telling me I was doing it wrong?
You were unintentionally turning your house into a convection oven.
Oh, no.
Yeah. If the fan is set to on, the indoor blower motor is gonna run continuously.
Right.
Like 24 hours a day, completely independent of whether the outdoor cooling unit is actually running.
So it just never stops?
Never stops. So the system hits its target temperature, the cooling cycle finishes, and the outdoor unit shuts off.
Yeah.
But because you force the fan on, that indoor blower just keeps sucking in the warm 80-degree air from your hallway.
Right.
Pushing it through ductwork that might be sitting in a roasting hot attic.
Right.
And blowing that same warm air right back out the vents.
Oh, wow. So you are literally just aggressively recirculating the hot air that is already in the house.
Precisely. It feels like a weak, warmish breeze, which creates the perfect illusion of a broken air conditioner.
Because you feel the air moving and you hear a motor running, so your brain says, well, the AC is broken, but it's just a fan blowing hot air.
Exactly. So, step 1, switch it to auto. And while you're doing that, take a quick walk outside to your backyard and just look at the big outdoor unit.
Okay.
Put your hand near it. Is that massive fan on top spinning? Because if the inside blower is pushing air, but that outside unit is dead quiet. That is a very specific, crucial clue. We will get to the electrical side lower down the ladder. But checking the thermostat and confirming that outside fan is spinning solves half the mysteries right off the bat.
That is incredibly practical. Okay, so let's say the thermostat is perfectly set, cool is on, fan is on auto, the outside fan is spinning happily. What is our next move?
The next move is the air filter. And this is the rung of the ladder that, well, homeowners simply cannot believe matters as much as it does.
I have to push back a bit here because I think a lot of people feel this way.
Sure.
We are talking about a heavy-duty, highly engineered, massive mechanical system here. My vacuum cleaner still works just fine when the bag is mostly full of dirt. How on earth can a simple piece of cardboard and pleated fabric completely sabotage the entire operation of an air conditioner?
Because an air conditioner and a vacuum cleaner operate on entirely different physics.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a vacuum is designed for high suction and low volume. An air conditioner requires low suction, but massive, massive volume.
Massive volume. Okay.
To do its job, your AC system absolutely requires a continuous steady river of warm house air to be pulled across a very cold indoor coil. It needs to breathe deeply.
So it's essentially an airflow engine. If you can't breathe, it can't work.
Exactly right. The heat transfer requires a specific volume of air to pass over the metal coils every single minute. Now, imagine a filter that hasn't been changed in months.
That's gross.
It is packed tight with microscopic dust, pet dander, and debris. It ceases to be a filter and becomes a literal wall.
A wall. Wow.
Yet that massive river of air that the system desperately needs is suddenly choked down to a tiny trickle. And when you reduce the airflow to a trickle, the system simply cannot move enough volume of air to pull the heat out of your house.
So it's physically suffocating, and the air coming out of the vent feels weak and warm because it's just barely seeping past that wall of dirt.
It is in a complete chokehold,
Yeah.
but fixing it takes 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes.
Yep. You pull the filter out and hold it up to a light bulb or a window. If you cannot see light shining clearly through that pleated fabric, it is plugged. Change it. That simple act is very often the end of the mystery.
But let's follow the physics here, because this leads directly to a really wild scenario. What happens if someone doesn't fix that choked airflow? Like, say they just let it run suffocated for days.
Well, if you starve the system of warm air for long enough, you trigger what we can call the ice age.
The ice age.
It leads to a highly counterintuitive problem, which is a completely frozen coil.
Wait, frozen? Like actual ice? Inside my house in the absolute dead of July.
Solid, thick ice. Remember that cold indoor coil I mentioned?
Yeah.
It is explicitly designed to have a constant flow of warm house air blowing over it. That warm air transfers its heat into the cold coil. But if a plugged filter stops that warm air from ever reaching the metal, well, there's no heat to absorb.
Oh, I see.
The temperature of that coil just drops and drops and drops until it falls below the dew point.
So it just gets colder and colder.
It gets so intensely cold that the natural humidity in your indoor air condenses onto the metal and freezes instantly. Over a few hours, it turns into a solid block of ice. And a frozen coil cannot cool anything.
Why not?
Because the ice acts as an insulator, blocking all heat transfer.
So starvation literally leads to freezing. How would a homeowner even know this is happening? Because that coil is usually like hidden away inside the dark ductwork or a closet, right?
It is hidden, yes.
Yeah.
But you can look for 2 glaring physical symptoms. First, go look at the copper lines running from your indoor unit out to the outdoor unit.
Okay, the copper lines.
If your system is starved and freezing, you might see actual white frost or ice building up on those copper pipes in the middle of a sweltering summer day.
That would be a bizarre, jarring sight.
It really is. The second symptom is pooling water. Because when the system shuts off and that giant hidden block of ice starts to melt, it completely overwhelms the plastic drain pan.
Ah, so it overflows.
Exactly. You will see water actively pooling on the floor around your indoor unit.
Okay, so the system is a literal block of ice. The house is boiling hot and we need to fix it. My instinct, and I think everyone's instinct, would be to run to the thermostat and just crank the AC even lower, like down to 60 degrees, to force it to fight the heat.
What's fascinating here is that your instinct is exactly what makes the problem much, much worse.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Forcing it to run while frozen just builds more ice and risks destroying the compressor. The absolute required fix here is going to feel completely wrong to you. You must go to the thermostat and turn the cooling Completely OFF.
Turn the cooling off when the house is sweltering. That takes some serious willpower. You are basically asking people to sit in the heat and do nothing.
It takes willpower, but you have to do it.
Uh-huh.
But here's the trick. You turn the cooling OFF, but you go to the fan setting and switch it from auto to on-N.
Okay, I see what you're doing. Now we want that fan running continuously, just like we discussed earlier.
Exactly. By forcing the indoor blower fan to run while the cooling cycle is entirely shut off, you are forcing whatever warm air is in your house to blow directly across that solid block of ice.
Okay.
You are essentially using your house's own miserable heat to thaw the system out.
That is brilliant. You turn the problem into the solution.
You have to give it several hours to fully thaw, though.
Yeah.
You cannot rush it, and you certainly shouldn't try to chip the ice away with tools.
No ice picks. Got it.
Right. Once the ice is entirely gone, you put in a brand new clean filter and you try running the AC normally again. If it cools the house, congratulations, you fixed the chokehold.
Awesome.
But if it freezes right back up again with a clean filter in place, it's time to call a pro. A recurring freeze means you have deeper, hidden airflow restrictions or you have a refrigerant issue.
Okay, so we've established that the indoor system needs to breathe to pull heat out of the air. But once it grabs that heat, where does it actually go? Because if I go outside, that big metal box in the backyard is blowing hot air like a giant hairdryer.
Which brings us to the next rung on the ladder. And this requires a total mind shift for most people.
Oh.
An air conditioner does not make cold. There is no magical machine that manufactures cold air out of nothing.
Mind shift indeed. If it's not a cold generator, what exactly is it doing?
It is a heat mover. It is grabbing the thermal energy from the air inside your house, loading it into the refrigerant, hauling it outside, and throwing it away into the backyard.
So it's just moving heat from inside to outside?
Yes. That big outdoor unit, specifically the coil wrapped around the outside of it, is where the system finally lets go of the heat it carried from your living room.
I love that visual. It's a heat hauler.
A heat hauler, exactly.
If it's hauling heat outside, it must need a way to release it into the surrounding air. I'm guessing if that outdoor unit is tucked behind a bunch of overgrown bushes, it's essentially suffocating on its own exhaust.
That's a perfect way to look at it. Think about it this way. If that outdoor unit is completely caked in layers of cottonwood fluff, packed with wet grass clippings from the lawnmower, and covered in road dust, it absolutely cannot release the heat.
Like it's smothered.
It is exactly like trying to cool your own body down after a heavy run while you're wearing a thick winter parka.
Oh, wow. If it's wearing a winter coat, the heat is just trapped inside the machine.
Exactly. The heat stays trapped in the system, which means the system cannot absorb any more heat from inside your house. The whole cycle backs up.
And the result?
The vents inside blow warm air because the heat has nowhere to go.
So how does a homeowner safely take the winter coat off their AC unit?
First and foremost, you turn the power entirely off to the unit. Safety first always.
Always.
Then you take a regular garden hose and you gently rinse the outside of that coil. You want to spray from the top down, just washing that layer of fluff, dirt, and clippings away so the metal can breathe again.
Just a gentle rinse.
Yeah. Also, take a pair of clippers and make sure any weeds, bushes, or tall grass are cut back a couple of feet on all sides of the unit. It needs wide open physical space to exhaust that heat.
Now, I know some people love to, deep clean things. Why not just grab a stiff scrub brush or a pressure washer to really get the grime off?
I cannot stress this enough. Do not go jabbing at the unit with a brush or a stick or blast it with a pressure washer.
Okay, warning received. Why not?
The outside of that coil is made of hundreds of incredibly thin, delicate aluminum fins. They are softer than you think. If you poke them or blast them with high water pressure, they will bend and fold over flat against each other.
Oh, so you ruin the vents.
Exactly. If you bend the fins over, you block the airflow permanently, and you've just created a much bigger permanent problem. Gentle water pressure from a standard hose, top down. That is all it needs.
Excellent warning. Okay, let's say someone goes outside to check on that unit and it's not just dirty. What if it is completely 100% dead quiet while the inside blower is still happily running?
When the outdoor unit is completely dead, we step off the mechanical side of the ladder and step down into the electrical danger zone. The first and easiest check here is your main breaker panel.
The gray electrical box, usually in the garage or the basement.
Right. Many central AC systems are split, meaning there's a totally separate, dedicated breaker switch just for the massive outdoor unit.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, if that specific breaker has tripped, the outdoor unit loses all power and sits dead. But the indoor unit is on a completely different breaker, so it keeps blowing air. Because the outdoor unit isn't running the cooling cycle, the air being blown inside is warm.
Now, I know how I handle my toaster when the breaker trips. I just keep aggressively flipping it back on until my bagel is done. I assume we don't do that with an HVAC system.
This raises an important question about safety. There is a very strict rule here in the trade, and we call it the rule of one.
The rule of what?
You are allowed to reset that tripped breaker exactly 1 CE. If you flip it back on and it immediately trips again, you stop it. Because a breaker trips for a reason. It is not a suggestion, it is a critical safety device. If it trips immediately a second time, the system is screaming at you that there is a real, potentially dangerous electrical fault out there.
Like what kind of fault?
It could be a shorted wire or a seized compressor. If you keep forcing that breaker back on, you risk starting a fire or completely destroying the compressor motor. You try it once. If it holds, great. Maybe it was a fluke power surge. If it trips again, you are done troubleshooting the electrical panel.
That is a crucial rule to remember. The rule of one.
What else on the electrical side causes that outdoor unit to just sit there dead?
Well, there is a very common small component inside the outdoor unit called a capacitor. You can think of it as a heavy-duty battery.
Okay, a battery.
When an air conditioner compressor and massive fan motor try to start, they require a huge surge of electrical, we call it inrush current. It's way more power than your home's wiring can provide in a single instant.
So they need a boost. Yes. The capacitor stores energy and releases it to give those motors the massive electrical kick they need to start spinning. When a capacitor dies, which happens a lot in extreme summer heat, the motor tries to start, it lacks the extra power, so it just hums loudly. But the fan won't spin.
So it's kind of like trying to push a broken down heavy car.
Exactly.
Like the absolute hardest part is getting it rolling from a dead stop that takes a massive coordinated shove. Once it's rolling, it's much easier to keep it moving. So the capacitor gives the motor that initial massive shove.
That is a perfect analogy. And if a homeowner goes outside, hears that loud humming, but sees no spinning, they might be tempted to, open the panel and swap that little capacitor out themselves.
I imagine that's a terrible idea.
Absolutely not something you should try.
Yeah.
This is strictly a job for a professional with the right multimeters and insulated tools.
Because of the electricity.
Right. Even after you shut the main power off to the AC, a capacitor stores raw, high-voltage electricity. It holds a charge, and if you accidentally bridge the wrong terminals with your hand or a screwdriver, it will bite you hard. It is a severe shock hazard.
So what does this all mean? It sounds like at this specific rung on the troubleshooting ladder, the homeowner's job fundamentally shifts. We aren't really fixing the machine anymore, are we?
You nailed it. Your job shifts from fixing the problem to gathering critical information for the technician.
Got it.
You are diagnosing the specific physical symptoms safely so you can hand that detailed information over to the professional when they arrive.
Which brings us to the very bottom rung of the ladder, the most notorious rung of all.
The sealed loop, the refrigerant.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I think almost everyone assumes that if an AC is blowing warm air, it just needs some juice. Like it just needs a quick recharge to keep going.
And that assumption is the single most misunderstood concept in the entire HVAC trade.
Wow, the single most misunderstood.
Yes. I really want listeners to grasp the physics here. Refrigerant is not like the gas in your truck. Your air conditioner does not burn refrigerant to create cooling. It does not consume it as a fuel source.
It's not a fuel, so what is it?
It is a perfectly sealed, closed loop of copper tubing. Think of the refrigerant inside as a thermal sponge.
A thermal sponge.
Inside the house, it boils into a gas and absorbs the heat from your air. Then it travels outside, where the compressor squeezes it incredibly hard, raising its pressure and temperature so it condenses back into a liquid, releasing that stored heat into the outdoor air.
So it's just moving around.
Exactly. That exact same refrigerant just loops around and around, changing phases from liquid to gas and back again, absorbing and releasing heat endlessly.
So if the system is genuinely low on refrigerant.
If it is low on refrigerant, there's a physical leak. Period. Full stop. The closed loop has a hole in it somewhere, and the refrigerant escaped into the atmosphere.
Wow, that completely changes how you view a repair.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes everything about who you hire to fix your home.
How so?
If a technician shows up, hooks up their pressure gauges, says, well, you're a couple of pounds low, and offers to just pour more refrigerant into the system without taking the time to look for a leak, they're not actually fixing your air conditioner.
They're just putting a Band-Aid on it.
They are just renting you a few weeks of cool air. because that brand new refrigerant is going to leak right back out of the exact same hidden hole.
That is incredibly empowering to know. It totally changes the dynamic when a professional comes to your house. You aren't just at their mercy.
It empowers the homeowner to ask the exact right question. If you are told it's low on charge, you don't say, okay, top it off. The question you ask is, where is the leak and how do we fix the hole?
That is such a good question. Where is the leak?
Finding and fixing that leak requires specialized electronic leak detectors, pressure gauges, and a massive amount of training. It is absolutely not a homeowner job. But understanding how the sealed loop actually works protects you from a bad repair.
Okay, before anyone picks up a phone to call for help, let's play detective and quickly recap the game plan. You are standing in your house. The vent is blowing warm. You are sweating. Don't panic. Walk the ladder.
Right.
First, you check the brain of the operation, the thermostat. Ensure it's set to cool, and the fan is on auto, not on. Walk outside and verify the big fan is actually spinning. Next, check the lungs of the system.
Pull the air filter. Hold it up to a light. If it's a solid wall of dust, change it immediately. Remember, the system needs massive, unrestricted airflow to transfer heat.
Then, we look for the ice age.
Check the copper lines outside or the indoor unit for frost, solid ice, or pooling water. If it's frozen, turn the cooling OFF, turn the fan on, and let the warm house air thaw the ice for several hours. Do not rush it.
After that, we check to see if the heat hauler is wearing a winter coat.
Make sure the outdoor unit is safely turned off. Then gently wash away the cottonwood and grass clippings from the fins using a regular garden hose from the top down. Keep the delicate metal fins safe from brushes. Trim those overgrown bushes back so it can exhaust the heat.
Finally, we step into the danger zone.
If the outside unit is completely dead, check the breaker panel. Apply the strict rule of one. Reset it exactly once. If it trips again, stop. If you hear loud humming but see no spinning out there, suspect a bad capacitor and keep your hands completely away from the electrical components.
And if the airflow is perfect, the coil isn't frozen, the power is on, the outside fins are clean, and it's still blowing warm, well, you have likely reached the bottom rung, the sealed loop. You have a leak. At that point, you've reached the end of the line for DIY troubleshooting.
But you have not wasted a single minute of your time. You have methodically ruled out all the simple, common stuff that causes false alarms.
Exactly.
When you do make that phone call, you can tell the technician exactly what the system is doing, what you have safely checked, and how it's behaving behind that warm vent. You are an informed, prepared homeowner. Warm air is a symptom, not a diagnosis.
I love that. You are taking back control of the situation. You aren't just panicking in the dark anymore. And for those of you who do reach the bottom of that ladder and realize you need a pro to find a refrigerant leak or replace a dangerous electrical part, our expert today has a specific message for you.
If you've worked through the easy stuff and your house still won't cool, don't sweat it out. I am Dave Hartzell, Hartzell's Heat and Air, 602 South Main in Kingfisher. Family run, NATE certified, and I have been doing this 47 years. Call 405-375-4822 or book online at hartzellsheetair.com. We are at 4.8 stars with 300+ Google reviews.
Getting to the bottom of the troubleshooting ladder doesn't mean defeat. It just means you are thoroughly prepared for the experts. We've spent this whole time talking about how to fix things when they go wrong, but I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about how incredible it is that we live our daily lives entirely dependent on the invisible physics of heat transfer.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. There is this quiet, magical loop of phase changes, liquids boiling into gases, gases being squeezed by immense pressure back into liquids happening right in our backyards, silently keeping us perfectly comfortable against the extreme elements.
It's a marvel.
It's a modern miracle of engineering. And isn't it funny that we only ever notice this massive thermodynamic achievement the exact second it stops working? Keep that in mind next time you feel that cool breeze from the vent. Until next time, stay curious.